Jesus explains, destiny or free will. However, think not that this is something certain members of the worldly wise call destiny, as if God had decided for every person what should happen in one's shorter or longer lifespan. To think and believe this can bring death to a soul, for this is a teaching, truly a secret product of hell, for it represents the direct opposite to the true principles of life out of God for men. People determine their own destiny by the perversity of their free will, and by the fact that they do not wish to awaken the seven spirits within themselves, which is why they do not reach the contemplation of their inner, true, and imperishable treasure of life. This is why they go astray, seeking the true inner light of life within the light of the world, and in good spirits they walk and act along that road. However, once a human soul has properly established itself in the darkest night of its own worldly arrogance, by allowing it to keep its inner freedom of will, no angel of heaven will be capable of giving it another direction, and nobody can say, "See, this was this person's destiny." Yes, it was very much a destiny, but not one originating from God, but from the person itself. God only allowed it according to the perfectly free will of man. And what I say now concerning a single person is also applicable to a whole nation. It is and remains the creator of its own temporal and eternal destiny. Thus, it would be quite false to assume that God has determined from eternity that all this which I have shown to you by these phenomena and predicted with the words from my mouth must take place. Oh no, absolutely not. Nevertheless, all will happen as shown, because the people want it as such, because by far the greatest and most powerful part of them live comfortably and most stubbornly in the very night of hell, of their own volition. And even now, upon my mighty call, they wish not to leave this night of death. Because I can do no more than what I am doing now, what I have done in the past, and still will do in the future. If they are to keep their complete freedom of will, and if they do not comprehend it, do not take note of it, then their blindness and the great stubbornness of their hearts cannot be healed by any means that one might call true, good, and gentle. As a last effective measure, a judgment must come. Yet for the judgment to break loose, the cup must be full, which, as I have said, will be the case soon with this nation. And as such, think not of it in great fear, for not I, but the people who refuse to change, want it this way. Said Nicodemus, "But Lord and Master, if this is the case, then things look quite bad for mankind. If even God cannot help such people against their own foolish will and stubbornness, then who could help them at all?" Said I, "Yes, friend, there are many earthly things you can see and touch, but do not understand. So how could you understand and comprehend purely spiritual things, things you cannot see and feel in any way? I have explained that God, by his eternal order, may not influence man in his inner spiritual development by guiding and directing him with his omnipotence, because, if God were to do so, man within himself would be dead, a machine that could never attain truly free independence of life. Bring me the worst cutthroat, and I will instantly transform him into an angel of light. But at the same time, his individuality would be as good as gone. But as I withdraw the spirit of my omnipotent will, his individuality returns once more, and the old cutthroat will stand before you. His love is to rob and murder, and it is therefore his life. Were you to take this away from him, he is completely dead, and has ceased to exist entirely. However, such a man can still be made better, namely through the truly terrible condition he has placed himself in through his evil love. Only then does the soul of a person begin to meditate on the reason for its evil and miserable condition, once it finds itself in severe self-inflicted judgment. And once the soul has begun to recognize the reason, then will it soon perceive the inner desire to rid itself of this miserable condition, and will think of the ways and means to free itself from this severe judgment. And once the soul has come to possess such a wish and will, then it will also be capable of absorbing a light, which was given to it from above by any suitable means. Should the soul seize the means it was offered, its previously evil love will transform into a better love, within and out of itself. It will become increasingly brighter within it, and step by step it will attain a higher perfection of life. And all this was made possible by allowing a most severe judgment. And therefore, a most severe judgment will be permitted to come upon the Jews as well, when their cup of atrocities is full, both here and in the beyond, humiliating them for all times of times, for they shall never gain dominion over a people. Chapter 121. The Guidance of Humanity. Knowledge, Intellect, and Free Will. He who has not yet created a sun, a moon, a habitable earth, plants, animals, and men, knows certainly not how all these creatures must be guided, sustained, and brought to their ultimate goal. I, however, know all this, and have established an eternal order, without which nobody could achieve anything. Man, as my complete image, must also have a perfect free will, by which he must, as far as his spiritual part is concerned, transform and strengthen himself, and make himself free from my omnipotence, so that one day he may stand beside me and live and act as a strong, free, independent, and self-empowered being. Behold, all creatures are subject to my laws, even man, where his body is concerned. Only the soul and the spirit of man are not. That is, as far as his will and the freedom of learning and the realization of everything are concerned. The form and the structure of the soul in all its parts is, of course, also subject to laws established by me, but only in such a way that, precisely because of the free will in man, he may become either noble and strong or ignoble and weak. Yet the free will of man would be of little or no use at all if he would not have the opportunity to learn and recognize freely, and from that, a reasoning that reveals to his will that which is good and true, and what is false and evil. Only when man has gathered knowledge and sharpened and awakened his intellect will the revelation of the divine be added thereunto, revealing to man the true path to eternal life and God. That is when man may either accept this revelation or refuse it. For even in relation to God, he must have a completely free will, else he would not be a human being at all, but an animal, devoid of any free will, merely controlled by an instinct it cannot resist. In the beginning, a single human pair was placed on earth, and the man was called Adam, and the woman Eve. God provided this first human pair with all abilities. They had a deep understanding, a clear intellect, and a truly powerful free will, to which all other creatures were compelled to bow down. In addition to these abilities, they also received a clear and easy to understand revelation from the mouth of God, revealing to them freely and openly what they must do to reach the goal that has been set by God, upon the shortest and easiest traversable path. Besides that, however, God let them know that they were completely free, and could even act contrary to the will that was revealed by God, by allowing them to be seduced by the flesh and the matter of the world. However, thereby they would bring a judgment upon themselves, and with it, their death as well. Now, all this went quite well for a time, but soon the sensual desire, represented symbolically by Moses in the form of a snake, became victorious over the realization gained from the divine revelation of what is good and true, and they transgressed the commandment in order to see what would be the result. And behold, what the first human pair did is now done by almost all human beings. God has never failed to provide great and small revelations, yet he has never forced any human being to heed them. However, blessed is the one who does heed them and directs his life accordingly. The first human pair had surely received the purest and finest education from God, and would have been able to pass this on, unadulterated, to all their descendants. But just look at the people 2,000 years later, during the time of Noah. Then you will see them transformed into most malicious devils. Did the first human beings on earth ever lack the finest education? Oh no. Have they passed it down to their children? Yes, absolutely, and always in the purest form. However, men felt within themselves the impulse to go against the commandment of God, because that was pleasing to their bodies. And thereby their lives fell into decay and utter God-forsakenness. And when God sent men unto them and admonished them in a fatherly manner to return to him, such men were soon excommunicated, expelled, and some of them were even killed in a cruel manner. Finally, those who had turned their backs to God even began to destroy the earth, and then their measure was full. They themselves opened the gates of the great subterranean waters, subsequently gushing over the malefactors, and they all drowned in the process. This, however, was not a judgment directly coming from God's will, but a judgment that was allowed, that had to happen in this way because of the inner structure of the earth. For if you jump down from a high rock face, crashing and killing yourself, this too is a judgment that comes upon you, but not by the will of God, but because the earth is arranged in such a way that everything that weighs much certainly must fall down. Something that man, by his intellect, is quite capable of understanding. Therefore, no human being on earth is so helpless that he could not help himself. If he really wishes to, that is. But if already from his childhood he does not want this, he can only blame himself if distress befalls him. And what I am saying now concerning a single person would apply to an entire nation as well. There is no nation on earth that could not help itself, if only it wanted to. But where is the will? Yes, there is more than enough will for doing what is evil and wrong. But for the spiritual, which is purely good and true, the good will is lacking, because it does not align with the sensuality of the flesh. The soul of one who does not possess such good will, even the souls of an entire nation, enter into the judgment and death of matter, then unable and unwilling to listen, to absorb or to understand what is of the Spirit, even the light and life thereof. If one seeks to awaken such souls, imprisoned within their own flesh, they grow mad and incensed, falling upon those who attempt to wake them, like wolves upon lambs, and strangle and tear them to pieces without mercy. Is that too God's fault, if such people, for the reasons mentioned above, fall into the greatest and most wicked blindness of their soul, a state they will remain in for thousands of years? If God allows an admonishing judgment to come upon such people, Surely this is good and wise, for only great misery of the flesh can turn away the soul from matter, and instead directing it towards the spiritual.